everyone. Welcome back to the Best Year of Your Life Summit. I'm your co host, Lori Gambacorta, and I am honored to be here today with Deborah Poneman. For over 4 decades, Deborah Poneman, bestselling author, award winning speaker, and founder of Yes to Success and the Awake Method, has shared her system used by hundreds of thousands around the world to live not only success and abundance, but deep happiness, profound self love, and inner fulfillment that never goes away. Deborah's clients have used her formulas to become mega successful entrepreneurs, renowned transformational leaders, New York Times bestselling authors, millionaires, billionaires, even household names. Yet Deborah feels her greatest accomplishment is not that she's helped so many live their dreams, but that she's helped them wake up and discover the greatest they truly are. Deborah, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. I'm very excited to learn about the Awake Method. And today's theme is setting yourself up for your best year, from dreams to reality. So I think that this will fit in beautifully. But welcome, welcome.
Well, thank you, Lori. I love Wisdom for Life. I love Best Year of Your Life. And I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Well, let's dive right into the Awake Method. So after 40 years of teaching success principles, you've shifted your focus to the Awake Method. So tell us, what inspired that change of focus for you?
Well, let me first tell you why I started Yes to Success in the first place, because we got to lay the groundwork, and then why I switched over to the Awake Method. So it was the early 1970s. And I was a full-time teacher of meditation. I became a teacher of transcendental meditation in 1972. Yes, I know, before many of you were born. And it was my passion. And I loved teaching TM and watching people's lives transform. But as the decade of the 70s progressed, and I saw the big 3-0 on the horizon, I realized that woman does not live by mantra alone. And I needed things that grown-ups have, grown-up 30-year-olds have, like health insurance and car insurance, maybe even a car to insure. So I decided that I had to make some money. So I thought, where do people go to make a lot of money? And the answer was clear: LA. Hey, I went to the Beverly Hillbillies. Everyone looked rich in LA. But the expression, because I was living in a meditation community in Fairfield, Iowa at the time. And there's the expression, you make plans and God laughs. Well, God had a big, gigantic laugh over me thinking I was going to LA to make a lot of money. But you need to trust that inner voice that says, go west, young woman. So I started selling investments. Totally wrong for me. I never sold one except to my dear father. Thank you. And but one day I was invited by one of my colleagues to go to a money seminar. And I thought, okay, I'm going because maybe it'll help me be more successful at selling investments. This is 1980. And it was at the Learning Annex in LA. It was in Santa Monica. And I walk in and the guy is talking about the law of attraction. And he's saying, this is what, decades before the Secret kind of made it a household concept. And he's saying that we're like tuning forks. And if you're vibrating it at F sharp and B flat comes towards you, you repel it. If you're vibrating it at F sharp and an F sharp comes towards you, it augments. And he said, if you're always vibrating with, I'm so poor, I'll never get out of bed, I'll never find my soulmate, I'll never be, whatever the story is that you've been repeating over and over, and then an opportunity for money comes in your direction, you're going to repel it by your vibration. And I'm like, wow. And he said a lot more things about how to create success and prosperity in your life. And that night I realized that I knew the inner foundation, how to create the inner foundation. I was a meditation teacher for 10 years, but I realized that there was a body of knowledge that showed you how to create a life that you can build on the foundation of silence. So I studied the great masters of success and prosperity. Napoleon Hill, right? And Wallace Wattles and Florence Scovel Shinn. And I launched my seminar company. And within a very short period of time, my seminars were being taught in 9 countries on 4 continents. Because what I did was I took all of this knowledge on how to create an outer successful life on the basis of silence. And I guess it was what the world needed to hear because, as I say, 9 countries, 4 continents, no internet, 12 major cities. And and I implemented, and the reason I think I was successful is because I implemented the principles I was teaching. And a few of those principles, for example, is an idea comes to you because you're the one who is supposed to manifest it. That's why we all have different ideas. I mean, I don't want to, I mean, I would like to, but I wasn't given the gift of like liking science to discover a cure for cancer. I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
musician. I can't play the violin, but I have friends who do. But I've always loved to speak and I've always loved to be on media. I used to do it for the TM movement. So one of the things that I learned from these great masters is that this idea was given to me because I was the perfect vehicle to bring it into the world. What are you the perfect vehicle for? And then another thing that I learned from these masters is what is sacred must be kept secret. See, most people, as soon as they have the idea, they go around telling everybody what they're going to do. But sacred and secret come from the same root. And sometimes what happens is if you tell people too soon what you're going to do, you bump up against what I call the discouragement committee. You know,
Yes, right.
right?
Yes,
You know all about them. Those
I
people who are
do.
who are going to tell you there's no way your idea is going to be successful. So it's crushed like a tiny seed before you have a chance to manifest it.
Yeah.
Another thing I learned is don't wait until you think you're ready because you'll never think you're ready. We live in a relative universe and there will always be loose ends. So you have to take a step from which there is no turning back. And I did. I rented a room at the Santa Monica Public Library. I mean, who was I? I was nobody. All I did was, I mean, I did teach meditation. I had a degree in the science of creative intelligence from Maharishi International University. But the truth is, I was broke and I drove a beat up old Chevy Bel Air. But the idea came to me. I took a step from which there was no turning back. I rented a room. I put up the posters. Another thing I teach is if you're not scaring yourself every day, you're not thinking big enough. And Yes to Success was born. And I'll tell you something else that people say, well, wait a second. If Yes to Success was born, I never heard of you in the 80s and the 90s. And the truth is that at the height of my company's success, I taught people the only way to be truly successful is to follow your heart. And in 1988, my daughter was born, and my heart said it was no longer time to be traveling around the country and the world, but to put that on hold. And I became a full time mom at home. And there I remained for almost 20 years.
I think that's beautiful that you chose that you made that choice and that you were following your heart. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I always say this is the truth. It was a choice, yes, and people thought I had gone out of my mind. I always say, yes, I did, right out of my mind and right into my heart. But I do believe that if you follow those impulses of your heart that continue to return again and again and again, that's the only way to true success. And so now
Well,
you
there's
want
not
to
too
know.
many jobs more sacred than parenting. So,
Yeah, it is so true. But it was interesting because while my students were writing books that soared to the top of the New York Times bestseller list, and I would see them on the TV, I was home knee deep in dirty diapers. So I just want you to know that if you make a decision, you will have doubts, but doubt the doubts.
yeah.
Because if you're following your heart, you ultimately will end up in exactly the right place and with all of the success that you dream about. So now do you want to know how Awake came about?
Yes, I do. I want to know why you switched your focus. And I mean, I love your whole background of marrying these spiritual principles with success principles, because I still think, even in 2025, I still think that there's some misperception that to be spiritual, I want to be the meditation teacher, I want to be the yoga teacher, means that you have to drive the beat up car and that you
Uh,
somehow can't, you know, can't have it all, so to speak. But clearly
no,
that's not true.
clearly that is so not true. And when I came back after my 20-year hiatus, and again, I have to emphasize that we were each born with gifts that we are meant to use. And if we take a year off to be with our mom while she's making her transition, or 2 years off to go hold AIDS babies in Uganda, or 20 years off to be a full time parent at home, the gifts that you're meant to use, your life's purpose is not going to go away. So don't worry about that. Follow your heart, even
Yes.
if it seems like it's taking you off course, because there are people here on earth whose lives are meant to be touched and transformed by you. And they are waiting patiently,
Mm-hmm.
and their contract is with you.
Right. So there's no such thing as it's too late, because there is no expiration date on the gifts that you came here to bring.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. That's a bumper sticker. I love that.
So
So
so yeah, let's go to Awake then.
yeah, so I
What
came
happened?
back. So I came back after 20 years, and my dear friend Marcy Scheimoff, I had this great idea to start a company called Your Year of Miracles. So we started the company together. She's an angel. Teaching with her was fun and profound, and Your Year of Miracles is an extraordinary program. But after about 5 years, the voice kept saying to me, go back and start teaching yes to success again. So after 5 glorious years with Marcy, I just had to again listen to that voice. Because I'll tell you something, Lori, I have never in all my years teaching heard somebody say, well, I listened to my voice and it was a big mistake. But I've had many students have said, I didn't listen to the voice, and it was the biggest mistake I ever made. So, everybody, if you have a voice that's saying, write that book, switch jobs, go live in a different city, leave the relationship that you're in. I mean, you could rationalize anything, but when that voice keeps coming back again and again and again, I recommend that you listen to it. So I started teaching Yes to Success, which, by the way, is a very spiritual program. But the name Yes to Success always belied the spirituality that it is. People always think that it's about the big houses and the fancy cars and the fat bank accounts. And you and I both know, while there is nothing wrong with any of that, it's not going to bring anyone lasting happiness. In fact, nothing outside of yourself is. And one day I realized that I know how to help people wake up. I mean, I spent the entire decade of the 70s at the feet of the greatest spiritual masters of the East and the West, often in deep meditation for 12 hours a day for months at a time, fasting and in silence. And I thought, you know what? It's time for me to be more bold about the fact that what I really know is how to gain inner silence, inner happiness, inner bliss, inner happiness. And on that basis, how to build outer success. Because if you don't have the happiness on the inside and you get the stuff on the outside, we've both seen it. We've all seen it. It will be like building a building without a foundation. It will crack and eventually it will crumble. And that's why we see so many people who are so successful who are so miserable to the point that they even
Right.
take their own lives. So, one day, while I was happily teaching Yes to Success, I thought, no one is going to find that what I really teach in Yes to Success is spirituality. I better be bold and start a new company that boldly announces, I'm going to help you wake up. So I did that. It was just a year ago, and I started this company called The Awake Method, which, by the way, is not that much different from Yes to Success. I'm just a little more bold about it.
Well, I think that, I mean, it's true that they're not separate. Like we just create this kind of false separation in our mind. But if you understand, like when you first started speaking, you were talking about the tuning forks. And
Yes.
if we understand that we're vibrational beings from the very start, then we understand that everything's spiritual because, like you said, that's the foundation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, you said that you're giving me so many bumper sticker moments. But we are. That's the thing. We're vibrational beings. And it's also all about mindset. If you think that having the beautiful house and the beautiful car is not spiritual, then you are going to vibrate that right out of your life. But I
Right.
also say that you will never be happy unless you share what you have. Why did Spirit give you the beautiful house? Well, it's to welcome guests. It's
Right.
to have gatherings so that people can enjoy the bounty that maybe don't have the bounty. I know when my second husband, who I've had a few of, my second husband was very wealthy, and we had a gorgeous house on the lake, in Evanston. And our greatest joy was to share that, to have gatherings, we had a beautiful car. What do we use it for? To drive the kids to the games in the other states, to take our friends to the hospital in the middle of the night, because if you have the stuff and you don't use it for good, it will never bring you happiness.
Right. Right. It's all on loan anyway, right? It's
It's
temporary.
all
So,
on.
so, so let me ask you, like, why now? So I understand that you're like, you have a pattern of following your heart. And so the voice, what did the voice say to you? Why now? What are the challenges and the things that are coming up for people in this particular time that makes the awake method so relevant?
Well, okay, I will answer that. Let me tell you the 5 steps of the awake method. And then it'll be easier to weave that in because I think
Okay.
that people will see why it's so relevant right now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So the first step in the wake method, and it's an acronym, the first is awareness, to recognize what you're doing to create the reality that you're living. That's the first step, A, in awake. And most people hopefully know that you're responsible for creating your life. It's not your mom or your partner or the government. And you have the power to uncreate what you don't like about it and create something new. And this awareness, it isn't about just seeing the problems, it's recognizing that, in fact, well, there aren't even problems. There are only opportunities to uplevel your life. And once you have the awareness that you're responsible for your life and you're ready to stop blaming other people and you're ready to start giving up complaining and being right and thinking you already know everything, then you create a space for W in awake, which is wisdom. Wisdom can't come in if you think that you have it all down. So the W in awake, until you are open to, yes, wherever that wisdom comes to me, I am ready because I want to uplevel my life. Until then, you are blocking it. So now you're ready. You know that expression, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I say, when the student is ready, the wisdom will appear. And not just outer wisdom, but inner wisdom, what your God self wants to tell you. And once that wisdom appears of how to create a glorious life, a life where you feel content on the inside, which is the basis to feeling content on the outside and successful on the outside, then you need to move to the next A, and that is action. And here's where many people find themselves stuck. It's one thing to have the wisdom of what to do. It's entirely another thing to actually do it.
Yes.
But, right? We've seen,
Yes.
right? Action is the bridge between the best of intention and the actual results. But how many of you listening have a computer full of self-improvement products, or as we used to call it, shelf improvement, because we would put the little cassette sets on our shelves, right? But
Yeah.
nothing, no matter how great you think the knowledge is in those cassettes, or how great you think the knowledge is in this fabulous summit, and all of the knowledge that Wisdom for Life brings to you, you need to put it into action. It's about taking those steps to do what you need to do to move in the direction of a glorious life. And the best way to take action, just by the way, is to break down your big goals into bite sized pieces because the brain is afraid of taking big leaps. But if you just take a baby step each day, you know the expression, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. Just one
Mm-hmm.
step towards your dream. Don't go to bed at night until you've taken at least one step. And next thing you know, you're going to be there. Even in the Bible, it says, not that I'm any kind of biblical scholar, but it does say faith without action is worthless. I mean, that's pretty
Yeah.
harsh. It doesn't say, well, faith without, try to have faith. Yeah, we'll think about the action. No, it says faith without action is actually worthless. That's pretty harsh. And after action comes my personal favorite, the K in awake. And the K is letting go. Stop trying to control. So, why is it a K? It's knowingness.
Mm.
It's trust that we live in a benevolent universe. It's surrender. And these days, Lori, you know this, when the veil is so thin, trusting in a power higher than yourself allows that power to speak to you and lead you, an intelligence that has your back, that wants the best for you. All you need to do is listen to it. And it's recognizing that you've done your part. You've taken the action necessary to get the results. But after you've done all you can do, it's time to put it in the hands of the God of your understanding and let the universe take it from here. You know, let the proverbial Jesus take the wheel in
Right.
profound peace and
Mm-hmm.
actually great power in releasing control and trusting that you've done all you can do. One of my other favorite quotes from the Bible is, man says, show me and I will trust you. God says, trust me and I will show you.
Yes. Yeah, we usually have that backwards.
We usually have it backwards. So, what could the E possibly be? Isn't surrender the ultimate? Well, there is one more step, and that is, drumroll please, enlightenment. And that doesn't just mean spiritual awakening. And it's not reserved for monks on mountaintops. Enlightenment is for all of us. It's about living in a state of profound joy, in deep peace, regardless of external circumstances. It's a state where your happiness does not, and your level of success does not depend on what you've accomplished. If you got on the cover of the magazine, it doesn't even depend on if you're in a relationship or even your state of health. It's the natural outcome of moving through awareness that there's more, being open to the wisdom, which isn't so plentiful out there these days.
Yes.
And we could sit for our own guidance and it will come to us because the veil is so thin. Do spontaneous writing, taking the action. You know, people do spontaneous writing and then put their notebook away. No, highlight the action that the God of your understanding, your higher self, is telling you to take. You're getting it from a source that has a greater vision than you. Take the action. Once you've done all you can do, just have faith, surrender, have trust to that knowingness. This kind of enlightenment isn't about escaping from the world. It's about engaging the world, rooted in love, rooted in compassion, rooted in presence. When you live this kind of enlightenment, you become a beacon of light. And that's why when you ask me, what is it about the awake method that I felt it was time to share it now? Because we need more light in the world. We need more positivity. If we see negativity, if we see falsehood, if we see all of those things that are so contrary to our nature rising, it's up to us, the light workers on the planet, to bring enough light in so that we can dispel the darkness. And we have the power to do it simply by you being a lighthouse. You become a tool in the hands of the divine. Surrender. I am here. Use me to bring peace to the planet.
So, what's kind of following that is, the way that you speak about inner silence as the foundation. So, can you explain for people like the connection between the inner silence and the outer success, and how can they cultivate that?
Yeah. Well, again, I said this earlier that trying to build a life of success without a silent foundation is like trying to build a building without a foundation. It's going to crumble. And what we want to do is to establish that inner silence. Do your spiritual practices, don't just talk about them. You know, the hugging saint Amma, she said, when we must now cling to our spiritual practices so that when the world shakes, we remain unshakable. So I say, whatever your spiritual practice is, if it's ecstatic dancing, if it's walking the labyrinth, if it's doing japa, do it. And I believe that everybody should learn a meditation practice where they cultivate inner silence, maybe using the breath. I mean, again, I've been a teacher of a self transcending type of meditation for 52 years, going on 53 years. And I know that there are so many excellent forms of meditation, but this happens to be, it's taught from by the Transcendental Meditation Organization, and I now teach through the Art of Living Foundation, but they're both self-transcending, effortless meditations that anybody can do where you spontaneously experience that unbounded silence that underlies all of creation. And when you touch that silence, you bring more silence out into your daily life. I've taught thousands of people, nobody can't do it. And and I also think there are many ways, but if you don't have a practice that cultivates inner silence, now is the time to start because the world needs you, a person with awareness, to be silent on the inside.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% about some type of meditation practice. So, I teach Reiki and I tell students all the time, like there is no substitute for sitting. There's just no substitute for it because in that stillness, and I don't know where this came from, if it was the Bhagavad Gita or where it came from, but um, that the yogis of India talk about in that stillness, that inner silence, we overtake those who are running by being still. And how about if we give the viewers, the listeners, a little taste of that? Can you guide us through an exercise about how people can be more awake right now?
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll give you two things. The first thing I could teach you is a breath technique. You know, a lot of people are teaching the breath right now, and also through the Art of Living Foundation, they teach a sky breath, Sudarshan Kriya Yoga, which is a very powerful technique, but it takes 3 days to learn. So I'm going to teach everybody something that they could do in 3 minutes. So it's called Shatali Pranayam. Pranayam, you know, prana is breath, yama is control. So there are many, many different types of pranayam. But this one is so simple and you could do it anywhere, anytime. And Shatali Pranayam is in English is called straw breath. And you are going to be amazed at how powerful this simple breath technique is. And all you do is, we could do it together. Breathe in through your nose. Fill up your lungs, but don't strain. And when you breathe out, purse your lips and breathe out through your pursed lips like you're blowing through one of those tiny little straws that you get at the coffee shop. One breath, and you always already start feeling more peaceful. In through your nose, out through the pursed lips, slowly, not like you're blowing out birthday candles, slowly. For extra credit, close your eyes. In through your nose, out through the pursed lips. You could empty your lungs, but it doesn't have to be completely empty. Don't strain. And now continue at your own pace for a few more breaths. Final breath in and let it out. And allow your breath to return to normal.
What I found with that, I mean, there must be something in the physiology of the pursed lips slowing down your exhale and making
Yes.
your exhale what feels like even longer than your inhale.
Yeah. And it stimulates the vagus nerve. And I'll tell you, one of the things I love about this is I use it before I have to go out on the stage to speak because I do a lot of live speaking engagements. I just do a few straw breaths. But what's really great about it is if you're ever like in a Zoom meeting, like maybe with uh, 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 your employees or your employer or a board meeting or a family meeting, and you're like not happy with what's going on, and you're like, just do a few straw breaths and no one will know. They're not looking at you to say, are her lips pursed? No, you could just do it. And I'll tell you, it brings you right back to the present moment. Sometimes I'll even do it when I'm in line at the grocery store and somebody's taking, because I tend to be more on the impatient side. And I'll just do a few straw breaths and it immediately brings me back to the present moment. And I look around and I think how lucky I am to be in that grocery store with all the abundance in my cart, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful technique. And while we're on the subject of Vedic philosophy, I just want to talk really quickly about the four paths that the Vedas actually. Veda means knowledge. And so we know Vedic scriptures talk about four paths to enlightenment, to be fully awake. And by the way, when you're living in the state of enlightenment, according to yogic philosophy, you will spontaneously be in the present moment. I know there are a lot of techniques to bring you to the present moment, but when you it's not an intellectual thing when you follow these four universal principles of becoming enlightened. And there are so yoga means union, by the way. So it doesn't mean four passive yoga like standing on your head and doing the plow and doing downward dog. It's four paths to union with the creator and all there is, and also always being in the present moment. And the first path is karma yoga. And karma means action, and it's the path of basically doing the right thing, not for rewards, but without expectations. And it's the path of selfless service. And everybody listening is probably a karmic yogi because you are devoting yourself to the highest action at every moment. And the next path is bhakti yogi, which is the path of devotion to the divine or God, and usually through a guru. So you see all of the people like in India who are devoted to their guru or to a deity like, you know, Lakshmi or Shiva. That's bhakti yogi. Bhakti yogis are focused on cultivating deep, selfless love. So they dedicate their practice to expressing love and surrender to God through devotional practices like chanting and prayer and pujas, also selfless service. Monks and nuns are actually bhakti yogis because they're devoting their life to the love of Christ or so. And sometimes people are bhakti yogis because they devote their lives to serving the elderly, or like Mother Teresa was a bhakti yogi. She completely surrendered her life to the devotion, her devotion to God, through serving the ill, right,
Mhm.
and the
Yes.
disenfranchised. So right now you might be taking care of your parents who are aging, and right now you are a bhakti yogi. So thank you for your service. The next type of yoga is jnana yoga, and or yana yoga, and it's the path that emphasizes the pursuit of knowledge or self-inquiry to attain spiritual liberation. And it's based on the belief that through intellectual inquiry, you can gain insights into the nature of reality, which will eventually lead you to knowing your own true self. And a lot of people get there by asking a question over and over. So here's something else that I'm going to give you, and that is, throughout the day, pause and ask yourself, who am I? You could do it right now. Even write down a few things. Who am I? You might write down, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a physician, I'm a good friend. And then again, who am I? Who am I? I'm a student, I'm an attorney. And this is one of the practices of jnana yoga. I mean, any intellectual pursuit is jnana yoga, but it's to go beyond the ego, because the ego says, I'm an attorney, I'm a physician, I'm a career counselor. But who am I beyond the ego? I don't know why I get emotional about this, because it's like we identify so much. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, who am I really?
Yeah. I mean, I think we identify so much as a physical body. And yes, all of these various, and they're like roles, and it doesn't make them good or bad. But
No.
yes, going past that, I'm not just that. I'm so much more than that.
And eventually you'll get to the place, according to jnana yoga, where I am all there is. I am infinite. I am consciousness. I am God. I am a creator. So that's another exercise that I'm offering. And there is one more type of yoga that is said to bring you to enlightenment, and that's Raja Yoga. Raja means king. So it's the yoga of kings, and it's about devoting your life to your meditation practices, your breath practices, your yoga practice, to gain the state of enlightenment. In the 70s, when I would spend months and months and months at a time meditating 8, 10 hours a day, during that time, I was a Raja yogi. So most of us do all four. We're not pure Raja yogis like the monks in the Himalayas who meditate and breathe all day. We're not bhakti yogis who devote our lives exclusively to God, like a Mother Teresa, or like the swamis in India. But we do serve our family, and some do serve our guru. We're not pure jnana yogis, but we do study the Bible or the Gita or the Talmud. And we aren't pure Raja yogis, but hopefully we spend part of our day in meditation, in yoga, in breath work, or whatever spiritual practice leads you to being that light, being in light, enlightened. And we don't have to wait till the moment that we become purely enlightened to be in the light.
That's really beautiful. Yeah, I follow the Yana path quite a bit. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really just do, refer to it as self inquiry, but
So,
it's very, very powerful. And I have actually been, um, part of Sanskrit chanting group, and chanting also, is a form of devotion that takes you past all the ways in which you identify yourself that are limiting.
Absolutely.
So you've
And
given us you've given us so much, and I want to for the listener who in this moment now just feels completely overwhelmed. Because you're like,
that's my specialty.
I got to do this, I got to do
too
that.
much.
So for that particular listener and viewer, let's help them with where to start. What can they do? What step can they take right now today when they're done listening to this interview that can move them to a more awake and a more fulfilling and successful year, to have the best year of their life?
Okay. This wasn't originally what I would say, but this just came to me, so I'm going to go with it. Anything that creates stillness, because, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, who am I? Who the Baal Shem Tov said that, or was it Hillel? Somebody in the Jewish scriptures. But um, we're doing this not just for ourselves, but for the world. And I know that anybody who's listening cares greatly about the world right now. So anything that creates stillness in you will also create stillness for the world. And I would say you can sit in stillness. You could do the breath that I taught you, which will bring you to stillness. You could forget about everything else that I said. One person who I'm actually loving his teaching is Zach Bush. And he said, stillness is where we remember our purpose is not to dominate life, but to align with it. So even if you don't have a meditation practice, just sit in stillness. Actually, Zach says, I'm going to give you more. Zach says to sit in stillness and just ask, what does this moment have to teach me? What does this moment have to teach me? And in this self inquiry, you might find the most radical truth of all, that you are already whole, that you are already one with the world, that you are already filled with silence. And when you come out, you have a choice at every moment. You could be a good karma yogi, which is devote your life to the highest action at every moment. Your job isn't to figure it all out. It's to get to that place where you can hear spirit guiding you. There are so many more ways to have the best year of your life. You can have gratitude in every moment for the good, even for the not so good, because it's just clearing the way for the good. So we always say, thank you, God of my understanding, by appreciating all you have, through loving everyone and everything, by not needing to be right, but listening deeply to what others have to say, by letting go of judgment, by loving what is, by being kind, by letting yourself be happy. But most of all, first, establish that silence. Do your breath, learn a meditation technique, and then all of these other things like being kind and letting go of judgment will be so much easier, and you'll have a glorious 2025.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, I've been a student of A Course in Miracles for a while now, and I want to know what you will say to the audience. That I think a lot of people still believe that their thoughts are private, that what they're thinking, and sometimes even the actions that they're taking, are for themselves alone. So what support evidence can can you share to help people know that by going into the silence and the stillness, you are helping. You're helping everybody by changing your energy, by changing your focus. Like if my internal dialogue is negatively focused, that's not just impacting me. That's impacting the collective as well. So I'm
Yeah.
just curious what you have to
Well,
say.
two things. One is you can throw a petal in the pond and tell it not to make ripples, but it's going to make ripples. And every thought we think, every action we take creates ripples. I had a near death experience a few years ago where I saw that happening in the place between life and death. Several years ago, yeah, I never get sick. One of the things that I am also very committed to is I only state the things that I want to happen. I never get sick. And but I had was just come home from a developing country, and it was a Sunday night, and I thought I was getting a little bit of a sore throat or something, so I did what I usually do, took some echinacea, some golden seal, some electrolytes, but Monday, I was a little bit sicker, and Tuesday, no matter what I did, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, and on Saturday morning, I was lying in bed, and I thought, "I could die here and nobody would know." So I did what any intelligent person would do. I called my local long distance healer, and I know you know all about that. And I said, "I think I'm dying. Can you help me?" And he looked in on me and he said, "I can help you, but you have to promise that you'll do exactly what I tell you to do." And I said, "Anything," because I was going. He said, "Call 911 immediately." So I said, "You." So he called 911 because I was going. I couldn't even press buttons on my phone. And the paramedics came. My blood pressure was 52 over 28, which is incompatible with life. They asked me what hospital I wanted to go to. I said Evanston, but it was 11 minutes away. They didn't think I was going to make it. So they brought me to a little hospital around the corner, and they started hooking me up to every machine and every tube imaginable. And I started leaving. And the reason I knew I was leaving is because when my eyes were open, I could see everybody running around trying to save my life. And when my eyes were closed, I could also see everyone running around trying to save my life. But I saw something I'll never forget. And that was, you know how we say there are no mistakes in the universe?
Yes.
I saw that every hand movement of the nurses, of the doctors, of the, I don't know what they call them, orderlies, was guided by a divine light. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, there are no mistakes in the universe." I saw how everything fit together like the cogs on a fine-tuned watch. And then, um, in that place between life and death, my former husband had arrived, and it didn't look like I was gonna make it. And it turned out, by the way, I had, acute sepsis. You have about 50% chance of making it. I had 2 deadly bacterias in my blood, not just 1. And, so he came because a healer had called him, and he was sitting there with tears streaming down his face, and the nurse went over to him and put her hand on his shoulder and said, there's no reason for her to say this, but she said, "Don't worry, she's gonna be fine." I was already on my way to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw in that place between life and death, because my eyes were open, I mean, closed, I could still see everything. When she said she's gonna be fine, I saw this light come out of her mouth. "She's gonna be fine." The words were accompanied by a light. It was kind of like a My Little Pony rainbow. It went out of her mouth and the light went into my body. "She's gonna be fine." And it brought me back to life. You know that expression in the Bible that our words have dominion over life and death? "Thou shalt decree a thing and it shall be added unto you." And then the doctor came in. He looked at the monitors and in this really intense voice, he said, "Get that blood pressure up. We are losing her." And when he said, "We're losing her," I saw the words come out of his mouth in that place between life and death, accompanied by this brown gray gunk. It even smelled like a swamp. It went out of his mouth into my body, and it took my strength away, and it started making me die again. And at that moment, I had a conversation with God. I said, "God, let me live, and I will tell everybody, not only their actions, their words." I could even see the thoughts of the nurses and the doctors going into my body and affecting my life and my death. And I said, I promise I will tell everyone so that they never again say anything that they don't want to happen. And then I upped the ante and I said, and I promise I will never say anything about my kids ever again. And I don't want, you know how we say about it, oh, he saw this, she saw that, my niece this, my well, when you're saying it, I saw that you're making that person be the way you don't want them to be. So when you say, how does it affect the world, our thoughts, our actions, our words? I saw that everything we say, everything we think affects the person that we're thinking it about, affects the energy of the entire planet. So if you want to contribute to the planet, join me in the commitment to, and am I perfect all the time? No. When I'm not perfect, what do? I put my hand on my heart because it stimulates the production of oxytocin, the feel good hormone. And I say, you're doing the best you can. And that's all you can do right now. And I love you. And, but you get in the habit of only saying the things that you do want, not only for yourself, but for our country, for each other, for the world.
Thank you for sharing that story, because I don't think there's any better evidence than that. And just because maybe people have not had a near-death experience, they can learn from yours and really understand the power of the word. And it reminds me of Don Miguel Ruiz and the Four Agreements. The very first one is be impeccable with your word.
And so it is.
I wish we could keep going. But we're coming to the close of our time together, and um, I want you to let people know how they can find out more about you and your work, and if you have any last parting words for people to live their best life in 2025.
Well, easy to find me, deborahponeman.com. And everything is there about the Awake Method, about Yes to Success. I teach a course called Ageless. I even teach a communications course to teach people how to be effective on Zoom. I hope I was a good example.
You're a
And
great example.
thank you. And the only thing that I could say that I haven't said already about making 2025 the best year of your life is just ask in every situation, what would love do? And if you're not perfect, forgive yourself.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. And thank you everybody for tuning in. And Deborah, we appreciate your time and just the value that you bring. And I know that everybody will get a lot out of listening to this. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's my pleasure and my honor.